We like that. Yes, yes. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, first is a public hearing.
Mr. President,
Yes,
we make a motion to open a public hearing in accordance with section 4246-6.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay. Who's up on this?
well, we came from,
Yes. Would you like to come and speak to us?
Yeah, sure. My name's Ray Aslin. I'm from Modern America Campgrounds and I'm the general manager at Wellwood Campground. We purchased the property on April 3rd. And it was formerly owned by the Smith family for, in excess of 50 years.
Wow,
So we are in the process of getting all our permits and everything in place with help from the wonderful staff.
okay, thank you. And what was your name again?
Ray, R-A-E, Aslin, A-S-S-E-L-I-N.
Do you, any relation to Marilyn Aslin?
I do have Marilyn Aslin, but I'm not sure in this area.
Okay. I know her, she's a nurse, she's about 5 years old.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Right.
Right.
Does anyone have any questions on the council for Ray?
No, thank you.
Anybody from the public?
President, seeing there's no questions, move to close public hearing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I, Mr. President, move to approve the seasonal recreation license for Wellwood Campground. The new owners, and good luck to you.
Thank you. We should say for the others though, we should say for the other licenses too, or is that, there's like a holiday and a.
Yeah, I don't see a need. I just wanted to see a face and
Oh, okay, no problem.
thank you for coming and, we have a motion to approve the license.
Nice.
And how do you?
Can we,
Aye.
I,
can we just make it subject to, on the agenda,
Subject to-
payment of licensing and advertising fee?
Yeah,
yes, make it, subject to licensing and advertising fees.
Thank you.
I believe the check may have already gotten to you. I'm not 100% on that, but we had submitted it a few weeks ago. So,
Right. Okay, thank you. The second amendment,
Point of order. There's a motion on the floor.
oh, we voted.
We did? Oh, I'm a yes.
You-
I didn't think we did.
Think I interrupted the vote,
I think
but
we did too. but
yeah.
I'm a yes.
Good.
Mr. President, under number 2, I'd like to move to open public hearing in accordance with section 4246-6B, discussion and consideration of proposed amendments to chapter 18.59, modification of the zoning ordinance continued from the May 21st, 2024 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nine? Rob?
Hello, council. So when state law was amended, in January of this year, there were a number of different amendments, most of which you have already seen and handled, at previous meetings, but there was this remaining element, which is in relation to modifications. So modification is, it's a mechanism to seek it's kind of a difficult thing to try to explain because it's different from a variance, but it can do some similar things as variances. But it's basically a way to seek separation from the literal dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance in the instance of construction alteration or structural modification of a structure or a lot of record. So up until January 1st of this year, communities have the ability to opt into or out of allowing modifications under the new state law. Zoning ordinances shall provide for the issuance of modifications. As a result, the town really doesn't have much of a choice in relation to whether or not it will allow modifications. The overarching shall governs that we have to adopt regulations in relation to modifications. We already had some in effect, but they have changed. The parameters for modifications have changed. They can be 15% or less, but which is what is the required minimum, but the maximum is 25%. There are certain modifications that can be granted administratively by the zoning enforcement officer, and there are others that do require notice. It typically depends upon how much of a modification is being sought. If it's 5% or less, then the zoning enforcement officer can issue a permit approving the modification without notifying the butters or circulating public notice. If a modification that that's proposed is greater than 5%, if it's a little bit funky, because if there are objections that are received in relation to the notice associated with the modification, and if the zoning enforcement officer receives written objections to the proposed modification, they have to have a public hearing. But if they don't receive written objections to the modification, they can be granted by the zoning enforcement officer. So the criteria for granting a modification has also changed in that previously under state law, it had to be in harmony with the purposes and intent of the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. But it no longer requires that the modification be in harmony. It's also silent on whether or not modifications can take place in conjunction with special use permit uses or legally non-conforming uses. So you'll see in your packet, there is the amended chapter. One important thing to note is that a modification cannot be used to permit the moving of lot lines, and it cannot be used to seek any kind of modification from the lot area requirements that would still be pursued through a variance. So there are, you can seek more than one dimensional variance for your property. That is something that has been in existence and will continue to exist. You'll see that there's a specific section on an application for modification permit and determination by the zoning officer. Again, most of this is related to what is now required under state law.
Will it, excuse me, will it allow them, owner of property, to modify the aquifer protection plans that we put in place?
No, it's relief from largely dimensional regulations
Right.
as opposed to use. But
Tell you what an example would help me to picture it. An example might be if someone was seeking a side yard setback dimensional variance. If it was just a few feet, it was 15% or less. Instead of going to the zoning board review, they could just come to you and get approval.
well, not me, but
The
the zoning enforcement officer.
the zoning
Yes.
enforcement officer for approval, instead of having to apply and go through that process, notice, have a hearing. So it's a shorter process.
Yes,
That's fair, okay.
it is,
Oh, streamline,
It's-
definitely.
but it's,
So if someone wanted to put an addition on their house that was going to bring them closer than they would have been allowed to previously, if it's less than 15% invasion on the other person's property toward their property, then they can probably get it. That's a big modification.
it I can't speak definitively on whether or not all situations like that would be granted, because I think each case is, it needs to stand on its own and needs to have its own merits assured of it, but I would say that, yes, like a side yard setback or a rear yard setback, those are the kinds of things that would be subject to modification.
And it could still be blocked with a written complaint, correct?
It might not be blocked,
Or to a
but
hearing. or a
it would,
public
it
hearing.
would then require a public hearing component where the applicant would appear before the zoning board and explain what the modification is that they're seeking and the purposes for it, and it would also be a time for any objectors to stand up and make comments in opposition to the proposed modification. So it really depends on, at that point, the discretion of the zoning board, because they have to weigh the comments made by both the applicant and any objector before making the determination. It would really depend on what the modification entails. There are a lot of different factors.
This is all in support of the ADUs that we've been
It
talking about.
feasibly could, but it's not necessarily limited to accessory or primary structures. State law is silent on whether this applies exclusively to primary or exclusively to accessory, so it feasibly could apply to ADUs.
Or to a shrub, something like that.
I didn't hear what you said.
It could be like a shed,
Yes,
could be any type of structure,
yes.
patio.
Setbacks, excuse me, Mr. President, so setbacks wouldn't be come into play with wells or septic systems?
That would be a little bit different. This is, I can't speak to that directly because the town doesn't really have authority over where a person's well is located or where someone's septic is located. That's under the purview of the various parties at DEM. If they were to propose a modification that would put something closer to a well, I don't know if it would necessarily be approved. It would probably depend on what the structure is. You know, if you're going to be putting up a shed closer to someone's well radius, then what kind of materials are being stored in the shed? That would probably become a point of discussion before the zoning board.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
Okay, so-
President, I have one other
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
Section E, it says the zoning enforcement officer may apply any special conditions to the permit as may, in the opinion of the officer, be required to conform to the intent and purposes of the zoning ordinances. Can you give me any examples of what that could be?
In the example of a shed, so say someone wants to have a shed that's not necessarily in direct conformance with the setbacks of the property lines, they could feasibly make a restriction that maybe you can't, maybe if you're expanding the shed, you might have to reappear before the zoning board or things of that nature. It's not really, it gives the zoning enforcement officer the ability to enforce or request specific conditions. Maybe if you have someone who is putting a shed up and their neighbor writes an objection and says, I don't like this, but I would like it if you put a fence around it or if you put a tree next to it, then feasibly the zoning enforcement officer could say, yes, we think that, you know, shielding this structure from the neighboring property will achieve the goals of you being able to have a shed and you being happy about not having to see the shed. So that's going to be one of the elements of the approval.
I guess the thing that made me uncomfortable was the word any. It's a hard thing, we pass, these laws are passed for good. But it's yet to be seen if it's going to be good.
And so parties do have the ability to appeal decisions of the zoning enforcement officer, so if there was a requirement placed on a modification that was unreasonable in that person's opinion, they could seek that remedy.
From whom would they appeal?
I believe that the appeal of the zoning enforcement officer still goes to the
Zoning
zoning
board of
board.
review. It would go to the zoning board.
Okay,
A lot of the things that have been appealed from have changed, so I wasn't 100%, but I was pretty sure it was the zoning board, so thank you, Chris.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Anyone from the public?
Mr. President?
Ask a quick question.
Sure.
Who's playing the function of the zoning enforcement officer?
It's the zoning official.
Is that full-time or part-time?
It's part-time.
Part-time. And that's gonna work with this change?
It would have to.
Okay. I'll go check.
Thank you. Any others?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, move to approve, the, new amendment changes, chapter 18.59, modification of zoning ordinance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. President? Motion to approve consent agenda 1 and 2.
I'd like to go A on the, meeting. Next. Second, that, or,
Okay, you seconded vote eight.
So can
Right.
second it with discussion. Yeah.
Okay,
So it's
so let's discuss A.
Karen, on page 5, right at the bottom, where we were discussing, the, create a long-term capital improvement strategy. It's just cleaning up the minutes. You actually put second time, a motion was made by Council Wilcox to the memorandum.
Oh,
It was
yes.
in Between the Chariho.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would clean these up because it's like Council Wilcox doesn't have a stuttering problem.
No, I believe the motion should have been Counselor Wilcox
Right.
move to have staff do the long-term capital improvement. So
Mhm.
I'll redo that motion.
We would like to modify our motion to approve all of the consent agenda items, given the correction made to item A.
Second.
Robert's rules would say you do a motion to amend the motion. So I'll do that, a motion to amend the motion to include the edits.
One second.
Vote on that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now vote on the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
excellent. That's just the approval of the payment of bills.
That was included with my motion. We'll do public forum.
Oh, all right,
Sorry.
sorry. So public forum, I invite anyone up to the podium, identify yourself. If you are a resident of the town, we'd love to hear from you.
Good evening, Mark Reynolds, Richmond. As everyone knows, we had the financial town referendum yesterday. That's the fourth election we've had in 4 months, which is pretty unprecedented. So I just wanted to publicly thank and release the town clerk, the clerk staff, the board of canvassers, all the poll workers who have been going above and beyond to make these elections run smoothly over these last 4 months. It's really unprecedented to have that many that close together. They've all ran smoothly, and it's great that people have confidence in the local officials to run these elections and say their voice is going to be heard. So thank you, Erin.
Thank you,
Council.
Mark. Thank you.
Thanks to the board and all the poll workers.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone online? Going once, going twice. On to reports. Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. President. Back in 2021, the Rhode Island Department of Transportation offered to purchase, the streetlights, on state roads. That would, for $1. That would relieve us of the responsibility of maintaining those streetlights. 88 of which are on state roads, so 88 out of our 118 are on state roads. On January 18th of 2022, the council actually voted to move forward with this. However, it's taken the state quite a bit of time to actually iron out the paperwork. But long story short, we're ready to go. We have paperwork to sign. Just looking for your approval to move forward and sign that paperwork. And then secondly, DOT is also requiring a resolution from the council, which is included, linked to the second agenda item.
Mr. President,
yeah,
I'm gonna do one at a time. Motion to approve, the agreement with the Rhode Island DOT.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
Move.
Your turn.
Move to approve resolution regarding streetlights.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's a short list today.
It is.
Chief.
Sure. Come on down.
Good evening. Lisa for the clock. Everybody. So I had three things I wanted to share with you. One of them is kind of obvious now, started on Monday at 7 AM, but there is a road closure on the southern end of Beaver River Road construction. Talking to the engineers, concerned of alternating the lane of travel overnight and having open canals on Beaver River Road, which is too dangerous, so we shut it down altogether. The three residents that live just south of Beaver River Schoolhouse Road, they're able to access by going to the police detail. But that'll go on until June 7th. So there is a detour at the end of Beaver River Road where it meets Shannick Road. June 7th, Friday, by the afternoon, they should have that reopened. Secondly, I am just proposing a request to lower the speed limit on Fawn Drive, which is in Alton. And it's kind of a L-shaped road that's only about 1,490 feet long. And it connects Riverview Drive to either end of that. And then it goes to Buckland Road. So essentially, it's all traffic in and all traffic out from that. It's a one-way in, one-way out. I visited that location based on a resident complaint and concern, asking to have the speed limit lowered. As we do normally, we do a site visit to see whether or not the request makes sense. And given the proximity of the homes to the street and the number of kids in that area that play and the sharpness of that curve midway through Fawn Drive, it really should be 25. It should be 50. That's my recommendation. So I'll submit something to the town solicitor and ask that the ordinance be, and then we go to public hearing in the upcoming council meetings. Okay. Lastly, say the best for last. 3 officers, Patrolman Ryan Donahue, Brock Taylor, and Adam Drukowitz, were dispatched to Hillsdale Road. The top of the state is not really one spot. Most people know that one building that's all boarded up on Hillsdale Road. They recognize that as the top of the state. It is massive, and a lot of people like to hike, park their vehicles on these dirt lots that are net and blocked by fire gates controlled by DEM. So we get a call 911 from a woman who said that her sister, who's 65 years old, prior suicidal ideations, prior suicide attempts, had taken an overdose of prescribed medication and then ventured into the Department of State. No idea where she was. So as officers are responding there, they're trying to figure, all right, we'll keep the area fresh, bring in a canine from another jurisdiction so we have our best chance of locating it because it's just such a massive area. And talking to the sister, she initially thought the cell phone was actually in her sister's vehicle. Then she discovered after going through it a second time that her sister had the phone on her. She was able to make contact with her. Although she was drowsy, she was able to offer some type of description as to where she walked. She had no idea where she was. So the officers went in, and she was actually about 680 feet in from Hillsdale Road, but it's not like looking across this hallway. It is all overgrown. And the topography of the land there is just hilly rocks, ravines, washouts. So the officers that went in were navigating this, and it's not 600 feet, it's more like 1,200 feet, climbing hills, getting snagged on branches and everything else, calling out to her until they heard her faint voice, and they got a good location on her. They still couldn't get to her because she had fallen down a ravine and into a prickle bush, a briar, a patch of briars. It's like something on a cut. Like you could hear her voice, you couldn't see her. She ended up suffering lacerations to her entire body, face. They went back out to where they had the dirt trail, had the whole Valley ambulance meet them there. They went in with it's a soft stretcher. It's like nylon fabric that you can slide 2 holes through. And then 4 of them alternated. Actually, it was 5 altogether, 3 police officers, 2 rescue workers. Putting her into this stretcher and then navigating the way back out of this thing. It was, to watch it on body cam, you could hear how hard they were breathing, how much work it was to get her out. But thank God, the sister called us. The guys took timely action when they got there. They assessed the scene. They had additional resources, but made a judgment call based on, hey, she's got her phone and she can kind of get us in the ballpark. Why wait for a canine and we'd be another 40 minutes away? It was 5:30 or so when this happened. These things can kind of evaporate quickly. Next thing you know, you can't.
Right.
So just a great job by them finding her, them rendering aid to her, getting her out of the woods. They got the whole Valley ambulance, great partner, emergency services. And because of them, she survived. And that's all I have on the survey questions.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Next is Recreation Director's Report.
Morgan is not here, however, she's requesting to rehire Chloe Grissom, Hayden Puglia, Dylan Edenbach, Brandon Resigner, and Isabel Woodmansee as counselors.
President, move to authorize the hire of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates that the recreation director has suggested.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Quick question for the chief.
Yes, sir.
Even though they're juveniles, do you still do a local like BCI check?
We don't do a BCI check on anyone under 18 because they're juveniles, they're not going to be in that system. But we have the same software system most other towns have for police departments. So we do an in-house check and a cross-agency check to see if there's any past contact with the person under the age of 18. 9 times out of 10, the only contact we had was the previous background the year before, but the same thing. And they're known to be SRO. These are good people.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you.
Well,
Next we have Town Planners Report.
Did we,
Hello.
did we vote on that?
Fancy meeting.
So we need to have a full slate of people to effectively jumpstart our technical review committee. And one of the parties that we need for the technical review committee is a member of the Conservation Commission. It's a little bit unusual because while our regulations, specifically Article 11, describes the process for selecting planning board member for the technical review committee, there was not a specific process for selecting a member of the Conservation Commission to serve on the technical review committee. So I consulted with Solicitor Zangari, and he recommended that in the absence of a specific directive in the regulations, it be under the purview of the town council to either appoint an existing member of the Conservation Commission to serve on the technical review committee, or allow the Conservation Commission to select their own appointee to the technical review committee. So the purpose of the technical review committee is to review projects for which planning board approval is sought. And it's meant to determine whether the application satisfies the technical requirements of the land development subdivision regulations, the zoning ordinance, and any other applicable ordinance or regulations, and to make recommendations to the planning board concerning the technical requirements and conditions of approval. So it is under your purview to select a party. I don't know if you necessarily have a specific opinion on who you'd like to appoint, or if you would like to have the Conservation Commission discuss amongst themselves and recommend a specific party. I would say that it would be helpful if the party had some technical expertise, like they knew how to read a plan. Pretty big one.
I believe that the Conservation Committee should select their own representative to this
So
So,
the one thing I would say, President Trummer, it would be better if they made a suggestion who they thought would be, and then you vote to appoint that person.
Yeah.
You have the authority to appoint people to boards and commissions. So
Okay.
you could do it that way, sir.
Yeah.
I think that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes, if that's what you meant, yes.
but Mr. President, when people apply for boards and commissions right now, they fill out an application.
Right.
I would like to see the person from the Conservation Commission also fill out that application, and we can look at it we could do it in the next meeting if they submit the paperwork.
Mr. President, I would think the whole process would be having the Conservation Commission members choose who they feel is the best candidate for this. And then when they do the appropriate steps of filling out the application, so that way we can see what their background is and whatnot. And then obviously that's brought before the council for full council approval of the appointment.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
an avenue that you can follow. Yeah.
So let's,
Mr. President, I would put that into a motion.
okay. And
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you get that, Aaron?
Yes, so I'll reach out to the conservation stating that the town council would like a recommendation, and upon recommendation, they'd fill out an application for town council approval.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it for that one.
Appointments and resignation. Mr. Bradley? Yeah.
Motion to appoint, Tom Connor.
Second.
Mr. Palmigano, would you like, welcome?
Sure, yes, it is.
You need to do it in German.
No, Council, my name's sorry, all right. Good evening, Council Jim Palmigano, Richmond. Thank you for consideration. Interestingly, I followed that exact same process, Council Shin. I was a discussion with the Recreation Commission. We discussed and they nominated me as the recommended candidate to be the liaison from Recreation Commission for this 250th commission. I submitted my information, and so therefore it is here before council. I did only put that piece on the information, so if there's any other questions that you had for me, as far as if there were questions or qualifications, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions?
How long have you lived in town, Jim?
Since 2008, but I'm a native Rhode Islander. So I was born,
So you're still a newbie.
I've been told I have to be here for at least 40 years before I'm considered a local.
Have to live a long time to do this.
You're about right.
Yeah, exactly.
You're about right. And you can't venture past old exit 5 too often.
I'll pack a lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
And how do you vote?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome.
Thank you, Council.
Licenses. Yes.
Motion to approve the victual license application of Walloon RV LLC expiring December 1st, 2024.
Okay.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, one more time, just conditional on those two.
Oh, so.
Mhm.
Vote. Sorry, did not see that one there.
Can we modify that, revote?
I think you could rescind and then,
Rescind.
yeah.
Or rescind our motion.
Mhm.
My bad, my apologies. Mr. President.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the victualling license of Walloon RV LLC, December 1st, 2024, subject to the RA Department Health Certificate and payment of licensing fees.
Second.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, would it be appropriate that we can just do 2, 3, and 4, subject to payments of licensing fees? Can we get it over and done with 2, 3, and 4?
Mr. President, it doesn't say that the fourth one has that though. So I think it might be
Yeah,
that
so-
to do it separate.
All right, well, what I'm gonna do is I'll make a motion to approve 2 and 3, holiday sales license and the table game for Walloon, in subject to licensing fees on both.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, move to approve the holiday sales license application for Ocean State Furniture. And doesn't seem to be any subject to.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On to new business. Counselor Wilcox.
Awesome, so I put information in the packet, but for those who are not aware, who they don't use the park, they didn't have the opportunity to read it. There's been ongoing flooding, at the entrance to the dog park. It's been happening with small amounts of rain just due to, various reasons, and we're looking for a little help to get that fixed. Funding is available through the grant, that was awarded to the town back in like, 2022. So, I'm just looking for council's help to have town staff, draft up the specs and solicit bids for that.
Okay, so that's your motion?
Yeah, motion to ask town staff to solicit, to come up with the specs and solicit bids.
I second.
Thank you.
All those in, discussion?
So it was, you had gotten a $70,000 grant, right, for the dog park?
It was a team effort. It really was.
So the team got a grant for $70,000. So there's money left from that 70,000 that we would put into the flooding.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I noticed the fence had raised up from frost heave or whatever, or from the flooding. That fence is gonna be fixed too.
The fencing is a separate issue. It's not quite on the agenda, but I'll give an explanation because it's been an issue. That was just the way it was installed. So myself and another member of the committee reached out to the company who installed it, and they're gonna be coming out and lowering the fence without an extra cost to the town. They're doing that just out of the goodness of their heart because they want good quality work for the town. So that's a kind of separate outside of this flooding.
Good, thank you. That being said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, move to file communications, petitions, and proclamations and resolutions.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?